Hello and welcome to day 199 in the Not Alone Today Chronological Bible Reading Plan. Today we are reading the book of Daniel, chapters 2, 3, and 4. And we're still in the New Living Translation for this week.
Chapter 2. One night, during the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had such disturbing dreams that he couldn't sleep. He called in his magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers, and he demanded that they tell him what he had dreamed. As they stood before the king, he said, "I have had a dream that deeply troubles me, and I must know what it means."
Then the astrologers answered the king in Aramaic, "Long live the king. Tell us the dream, and we will tell you what it means."
But the king said to the astrologers, "I am serious about this. If you don't tell me what my dream was and what it means, you will be torn limb from limb, and your houses will be turned into heaps of rubble. But if you tell me what I dreamed and what the dream means, I will give you many wonderful gifts and honors. Just tell me the dream and what it means."
They said again, "Please, your majesty, tell us the dream, and we will tell you what it means."
The king replied, "I know what you're doing. You're stalling for time because you know I am serious when I say, if you don't tell me the dream, you're doomed. So you have conspired to tell me lies, hoping I will change my mind. But tell me the dream, and then I'll know that you can tell me what it means."
The astrologers replied to the king, "No one on earth can tell the king his dream. And no king, however great and powerful, has ever asked such a thing of any magician, enchanter, or astrologer. The king's demand is impossible. No one except the gods can tell you your dream, and they do not live here among people."
The king was furious when he heard this, and he ordered that all the wise men of Babylon be executed. And because of the king's decree, men were sent to find and kill Daniel and his friends.
When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, came to kill them, Daniel handled the situation with wisdom and discretion. He asked Arioch why has the king issued such a harsh decree. So Arioch told him all that had happened. Daniel went at once to see the king and requested more time to tell the king what the dream meant.
Then Daniel went home and told his friends, Ananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, what had happened. He urged them to ask the God of heaven to show them his mercy by telling them the secret, so that they would not be executed along with the other wise men of Babylon. That night, the secret was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven. He said,
"Praise the name of God forever and ever, for he has all wisdom and power. He controls the course of world events. He removes kings and sets up other kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the scholars. He reveals deep and mysterious things and knows what lies hidden in darkness, though he is surrounded by light. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors, for you have given me wisdom and strength. You have told me what we asked of you and revealed to us what the king demanded."
Then Daniel went in to see Arioch, whom the king had ordered to execute the wise men of Babylon. Daniel said to him, "Don't kill the wise man. Take me to the king, and I will tell him the meaning of his dream."
Arioch quickly took Daniel to the king and said, "I have found one of the captives from Judah who will tell the king the meaning of his dream."
The king said to Daniel, also known as Belteshazzar, "Is this true? Can you tell me what my dream was and what it means?"
Daniel replied, "There are no wise men, enchanters, magicians, or fortune tellers who can reveal the king's secrets. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the future. Now I will tell you your dream and the visions you saw as you lay on your bed."
While your majesty was sleeping, you dreamed about coming events. He who reveals secrets has shown you what is going to happen. And it is not because I am wiser than anyone else that I know the secret of your dream, but because God wants you to understand what is in your heart.
In your vision, your majesty, you saw standing before you a huge shining statue of a man. It was a frightening sight. The head of the statue was made of fine gold. Its chest and arms were silver. Its belly and thighs were bronze. Its legs were iron, and its feet were a combination of iron and baked clay. As you watched, a rock was cut from a mountain, but not by human hands. It struck the feet of iron and clay, smashing them to bits. The whole statue was crushed into small pieces of iron, clay, bronze, silver, and gold. Then the wind blew them away without a trace, like chaff on a threshing floor. But the rock that knocked the statue down became a great mountain that covered the whole earth.
That was a dream. Now we will tell the king what it means. Your Majesty, you're the greatest of kings. The God of heaven has given you sovereignty, power, strength, and honor. He has made you the ruler over all the inhabited world, and has put even the wild animals and birds under your control. You are the head of God.
But after your kingdom comes to an end, another kingdom inferior to yours will rise to take your place. After that kingdom has fallen, yet a third kingdom, represented by bronze, will rise to rule the world. Following that kingdom, there will be a fourth one as strong as iron. That kingdom will smash and crush all previous empires, just as iron smashes and crushes everything it strikes. The feet and toes you saw were a combination of iron and baked clay, showing that this kingdom will be divided, like iron mixed with clay. It will have some of the strength of iron, but while some parts of it will be as strong as iron, other parts will be as weak as clay. This mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances with each other through intermarriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron and clay do not mix.
During the reigns of those kings, the gods of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed or conquered. It will crush all these kingdoms into nothingness, and it will stand forever. That is the meaning of the rock cut from the mountain, though not by human hands, that crushed to pieces the statue of iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold. The great God was showing the king what will happen in the future. The dream is true, and its meaning is certain.
Then King Nebuchadnezzar threw himself down before Daniel and worshipped him. And he commanded his people to offer sacrifices and burn sweet incense before him. The king said to Daniel, "Truly your God is the greatest of gods, the Lord over kings, a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this secret."
Then the king appointed Daniel to a high position and gave him many valuable gifts. He made Daniel ruler over the whole province of Babylon, as well as chief over all his wise men. At Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be in charge of all the affairs of the province of Babylon, while Daniel remained in the king's court.
Chapter 3. King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then he sent messages to the high officers, officials, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the provincial officials to come to the dedication of the statue he had set up. So all these officials came and stood before the statue King Nebuchadnezzar had set up.
Then a herald shouted out, "People of all races and nations and languages, listen to the king's command. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and other musical instruments, bow to the ground to worship King Nebuchadnezzar's gold statue. Anyone who refuses to obey will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace."
So at the sound of the musical instruments, all the people, whatever their race or nation or language, bowed to the ground and worshipped the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up.
But some of the astrologers went to the king and informed on the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "Long live the king. You issued a decree requiring all the people to bow down and worship the gold statue when they hear the sound of the horn, flutes, zither, lyre, harps, pipes, and other musical instruments. That decree also states that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you have put in charge of the province of Babylon. They pay no attention to you, your majesty. They refuse to serve your gods and do not worship the gold statue you have set up."
Then Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage and ordered that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought before him. When they were brought in, Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue that I have set up? I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you'll be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will be able to rescue you from my power?"
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue that you've set up."
Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage. He commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So they tied them up and threw them into the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, turbans, robes, and other garments. And because the king in his anger had demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames killed the soldiers as they threw the 3 men in. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring flames.
But suddenly, Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace?"
"Yes, your majesty, we certainly did," they replied.
"Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the fire, unharmed, and the 4th one looks like a god."
Then Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here."
So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. Then the high officers, officials, governors, and advisors crowded around them and saw that the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their heads was singed, and their clothing was not scorched. They didn't even smell of smoke.
Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel to rescue his servants who trusted in him. They defied the king's command and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I make this decree. If any people, whatever their race or nation or language, speak a word against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they will be torn limb from limb, and their houses will be turned into heaps of rubble. There is no other God who can rescue like this."
Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to even higher positions in the province of Babylon.
Chapter 4. King Nebuchadnezzar sent this message to the people of every race and nation and language throughout the world. Peace and prosperity to you.
I want you all to know about the miraculous signs and wonders the Most High God has performed for me.
How great are his signs, how powerful his wonders. His kingdom will last forever, his rule through all generations.
I, Nebuchadnezzar, was living in my palace in comfort and prosperity. But one night, I had a dream that frightened me. I saw visions that terrified me as I lay in my bed. So I issued an order calling in all the wise men of Babylon so they could tell me what my dream meant. When all the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and fortune tellers came in, I told them the dream, but they could not tell me what it meant. At last, Daniel came in before me, and I told him the dream. He was named Belteshazzar after my gods, and the spirit of the holy gods is in him.
I said to him, "Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and that no mystery is too great for you to solve. Now tell me what my dream means."
While I was lying in my bed, this is what I dreamed. I saw a large tree in the middle of the earth. The tree grew very tall and strong, reaching high into the heavens for all the world to see. It had fresh green leaves, and it was loaded with fruits for all to eat. Wild animals lived in its shade, and birds nested in its branches. All the world was fed from this tree.
Then as I lay there dreaming, I saw a messenger. a holy one coming down from heaven. The messenger shouted,
Cut down the tree and lop off its branches, shake off its leaves and scatter its fruits. Chase the wild animals from its shade and the birds from its branches, but leave the stump and the roots in the ground, bound with a band of iron and bronze, and surrounded by tender grass. Now let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the wild animals among the plants of the field. For 7 periods of time, let him have the mind of a wild animal, instead of the mind of a human. For this is to be decreed by the messengers. It is commanded by the holy ones, so that everyone may know that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world. He gives to anyone he chooses, even to the lowliest of people.
Belteshazzar, that was the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had. Now tell me what it means, for none of the wise men of my kingdom can do so. But you can tell me because the spirit of the holy gods is in you.
Upon hearing this, Daniel, also known as Belteshazzar, was overcome for a time, frightened by the meaning of the dream. Then the king said to him, Belteshazzar, don't be alarmed by the dream and what it means.
Belteshazzar replied, I wish the events foreshadowed in this dream would happen to your enemies, my lord, and not to you. The tree you saw was growing very tall and strong, reaching high into the heavens for all the world to see. It had fresh green leaves and was loaded with fruit for all to eat. Wild animals lived in its shade and birds nested in its branches. That tree, your majesty, is you, for you have grown strong and great. Your greatness reaches up to heaven, and your rule to the ends of the earth.
Then you saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, Cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump and the roots in the ground, bound with a band of iron and bronze, and surrounded by tender grass. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the animals of the field for 7 periods of time.
This is what the dream means, your majesty, and what the Most High has declared will happen to my lord the king. You will be driven from human society, and you will live in the fields with the wild animals. You will eat grass like a cow, and you will be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way, until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. But the stump and roots of the tree were left in the ground. This means that you will receive your kingdom back again when you have learned that heaven rules.
King Nebuchadnezzar, please accept my advice. Stop sinning and do what is right. Break from your wicked past and be merciful to the poor. Perhaps then you will continue to prosper.
But all these things did happen to King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, he was taking a walk on the flat roof of the royal palace in Babylon. As he looked out across the city, he said, Look at this great city of Babylon. By my own mighty power, I have built this beautiful city as my royal residence to display my majestic splendor.
While these words were still in his mouth, a voice called down from heaven, O King Nebuchadnezzar, this message is for you. You are no longer ruler of this kingdom. You will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields with the wild animals, and you will eat grass like a cow. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way, until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and give them to anyone he chooses.
That same hour, the judgment was fulfilled, and Nebuchadnezzar was driven from human society. He ate grass like a cow, and he was drenched with the dew of heaven. He lived this way until his hair was as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like birds' claws.
After this period had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to heaven, my sanity returned, and I praised and worshipped the Most High and honored the one who lives forever.
His rule is everlasting, and his kingdom is eternal. All the people of the earth are nothing compared to him. He does as he pleases among the angels of heaven and among the people of the earth. No one can stop him or say to him, What do you mean by doing these things?
When my sanity returned to me, so did my honor and glory and kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored as head of my kingdom, with even greater honor than before.
Now high Nebuchadnezzar, praise and glorify and honor the King of heaven. All his acts are just and true, and he is able to humble the proud. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Today we've read 3 chapters in the book of Daniel. We did not exactly offer an overview of the book of Daniel when we crossed into it yesterday. But in a nutshell, the book, of course, is about Daniel. The book kind of divides into 2 halves. The first 6 chapters gives us the narrative side to it. Daniel being in captivity in Babylon with his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and the kind of events that happened within that period when he got to serve at least about 5 different rulers. From chapter 6 to the end of the book, we saw apocalyptic literature, so Daniel seeing visions of the end times and writing about it, and we'll get to that as we continue in the story. But from our reading today in chapter 2, we saw the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, the dream to which he wanted an explanation, but without narrating the dream to the people. He believed that the one that is able to first and foremost actually retell the dream would then possibly have the capacity to give him the interpretation thereof. And eventually Daniel and his friends came to the rescue, not by any power of their own doing, but by the ability that God has given to them. In chapter 3, we saw the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, which he made, pretty much similar to the image in the dream that he had in chapter 2. And this time, he ordered everyone to bow down and worship that statue. Of course, everyone did, except for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It's always a curious detail that Daniel was not mentioned at all in this chapter, and we don't know where he was. Perhaps he had been sent on an official duty. But in any case, he was not involved in this story. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow down, were cast into the fire, and God joined them in the fire. And that led to their God being celebrated even by the very mouth of Nebuchadnezzar. And finally, in chapter 4, Nebuchadnezzar had yet another dream. A dream that even Daniel wished were not true when he was going to interpret it. Because the meaning of the dream in a nutshell is that the king is going to become like an animal, become a beast for a season until he has learned the greatness and the sovereignty of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And indeed, the dream was fulfilled 12 months later on the occasion when King Nebuchadnezzar himself wanted to flaunt his power, and he was immediately judged by God, became a beast for 7 periods of time, whether that is 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 months, 7 years, we do not know. Bible scholars are divided on what 7 periods of time means. But in any case, it was an animal, more or less, for a while, until he came back to his senses and acknowledged the greatness of Yahweh and wrote this chapter, more or less, to distribute around the kingdom, which spanned literally all of the known world at the time, to proclaim the greatness of the true God, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And that's what we've read today. What stood out to you, Anu, from the chapters we've read?
Chapter 2 stood out to me, and it's the comparison between the wise men's declaration to the king about his dream that he doesn't know but wants them to tell him, and Daniel's response. So the wise men said, "Oh no, nobody can tell you this dream, no man on earth." But when it was their hasty response that led to Daniel finding out about what was happening. But Daniel then asked for more time, and that's instructive for me, in that even if when we're filled with wisdom and we know what to do part time, there's also wisdom in asking for more time to get clarification on a matter before responding to it. And that stood out to me. What about you?
Yes, for me as well, in chapter 2, verse verse 23 ends by saying, "You have told me what we asked of you and revealed to us what the king demanded." And this is Daniel's thanksgiving, praise to God, having known what the dream was and the interpretation. But the fact that it began by saying, "You have told me," singular, "what we," plural, asked of you, implied that he went back to his friends and they prayed together about this. And when he was actually going to say the interpretation, he used that plural again. He says in verse 36, "That was the dream. Now we will tell the king what it means." So not just me. So Daniel was operating basically in community with his friends, and just again emphasizing the need to have people of like minds working together as we do life together. Then, of course, in verse 49 of that chapter, it says, "At Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be in charge of all the affairs of the province of Babylon." And so, again, seeing there how Daniel's opportunity, the privilege he got by virtue of what he has done, he leveraged that to also help his community, to help his friends, to help those with whom he was doing life together. So I found that quite interesting. Of course, chapter 3 is a classic story that will always catch my attention, really, especially that phrase in verse 17, "Even if he does not," and verse 18, "Even if God doesn't save us." We want to make it clear to you, Your Majesty, that we'll never serve your gods or worship the gold statue that you have set up. And they were so polite. They kept Your Majesty in him all through the response and conversation. It's just so interesting that there's no animosity. No disrespect, but at the same time, just so you know, Your Majesty, even if God doesn't save us, and that's just, oh gosh, that's the depth of trust. We know He can. He will rescue us. That's our belief. That's faith. But let's take it even further, even if He doesn't. Of course, because He's omniscient and sovereign, there must be a good reason for that. So we still will not worship your gold statue. And that's interesting to me. Any other things stood out to you?
The part that actually stood out to me more was verse 19, when we're told that Nebuchadnezzar's face became distorted with rage.
Yeah.
That part was quite instructive for me with regards to parenting, where when my children do things like repeatedly, when I don't know to do it, there's a kind of anger that comes over me that makes me want to actually show them discipline them so much that they understand that they shouldn't have done that thing. And when I read "distorted with rage," the Holy Spirit intellect, I know, don't let your face be distorted with rage. And then it ties into what I shared earlier about asking for more time.
Yeah.
There's always the 30-second rule that the Holy Spirit has been teaching me. So they've disobeyed for the 100th time. Don't rush at them. Give them time. Or separate yourselves from them. Tell them to go to a corner so you're able to be objective in whatever discipline you give them. Because sometimes when we're trying to discipline the child, we fail to measure it with the actual offense.
Yeah.
We want to subjugate them to make them say that you shouldn't have done that. But then when we allow time to come in, and then with the administration of the Holy Spirit, we gain better perspective on how best to deal with the situation. Yes, what about you?
In chapter 4, what stood out to me is the fact that after Daniel gave the interpretation of the dream, he added his own commentary and said, "King Nebuchadnezzar, please accept my advice. Stop sinning and do what is right." And I think there's a principle there. In spite of the fact that the dream seemed prophetic
and dire,
God did not bring the judgment until the occasion for it arose. And the occasion was that indeed Nebuchadnezzar would one day start walking upon the roof of his palace and showing himself more or less as God and say, "I've built all of this by my power." That became an occasion for that which had been spoken, but waiting to find the right opportunity to strike. The judgment that has been waiting and hanging then came into effect. So indeed, if he had yielded the advice of Daniel when he says, "Stop sinning and do what is right, break from your wicked past and be merciful to the poor, perhaps then you will continue to prosper," If that had been heeded, then perhaps he could have avoided this impending judgment. But of course, it wasn't avoided, or it wasn't heeded, and the judgment was not avoided. How about you?
On chapter 4, I respected Daniel's reticence in telling the king his dream.
Yeah.
I mean, the interpretation of the dream. That shows the human part of him. The Bible said he was frightened, but then when Nebuchadnezzar told him to say it and not worry, the way he then said it was, I wish this did not happen to you, but to your enemy. But then it went on. Just that part of humanity. It's like one of the proverbs, one of your proverbs that says that if you are sent a message of a servant, when you get there, deliver the message like a son. And this is what Daniel did here, in that despite the fact that he's wise, he's got a high position, he used discernment and wisdom to deliver the message, and that's quite instructive to me.
Indeed. So thank you for joining us for day 199. One more day and we'll be in day 200. So join us for that milestone episode when we will be going back to 2 Kings 24 for a couple of verses, and then return as well to Jeremiah for a couple of verses. But till then, just remember,
you're not alone
today. God bless you.